Damn, Kenya, that was a gargle. Okay. Okay. I almost made a throat goat joke, but I'm not because we just got
Don't
started.
do it. Don't do
For
it.
those of you who recognize that voice, Kenya is back.
What's
Pew, pew, pew,
good?
pew. Kenya, I had so much fun for the Galentine's episode that we had to like make sure that we did another episode with you. And
I'm
this,
so honored.
I mean, you should because I don't like everybody like that.
I know you don't,
but
friend.
but,
So thank
but
you for liking
you were
me.
great, and it's so funny because in one of the episodes, Lulu started calling you PR.
She did.
And it's when I think of you, I think of a media strategist. What do you officially call yourself? Jack of all trades, master of a couple.
Cultural strategist.
I love. Wait a minute, you're a cultural strategist, and I'm a cultural critic.
That's why we go together.
That is cute for us.
That's why we go together.
Okay, that's very cute. That's very cute.
Yeah,
All right, so I'm going to start off with the pink elephant in the room for me.
Okay.
And that pink elephant is Beyonce.
Okay.
For those of you who don't know, I had zero plans of going to the Beyonce concert because, hold my hand, Fred. Me and Kenya are both recovering from Beyonce ticket purchasing whiplash. Okay, so I hit you up 6-7 months ago and said, Kenya, I would love to go to Beyonce
No,
in
y'all,
London.
She need to tell the story right. What she did was
Uh-oh.
she sent me a text, and when I did not respond fast enough, she called me.
Oh, no, I'm talking about 6 months ago, though.
No, I'm talking about 6 months ago too. You
Oh.
were very clear.
Okay.
And you were like, listen, we are doing this. And that's how we started talking about doing it overseas. That was on a phone call.
That's true, because I did the same thing to, it was you, Jeffrey.
You were very clear.
Yeah,
you
it
were
was
like, friend.
It was you, Jeffrey, and David. And I said, guys.
Yes.
Because I had got some
Our
intel.
brothers. We love y'all.
Yeah, I got
Jeff
some
and David.
I got some intel from someone affiliated.
Yep.
Don't want to get nobody in trouble.
That's what she did. She flexed.
Yeah, way before the world found out about it at the Wearable Art Gala,
Yep.
which I was also invited to and didn't go to, and that was a mistake. I should have gone. But well before that, somebody from Beyonce's ecosystem had told me that she was going to be kicking off her tour in Europe.
Yeah.
The minute I got that intel over the summer, I called Kenya and David and Jeffrey and said,
Yes.
I have decided that if she's going to start in Europe, that the best place to start is in London.
She called her bougie ass black friend.
I
That's what she
did. I did.
She called her black friend.
I called folks who I thought the check was clear. Okay, no offense to the rest of you, I didn't call. That was me respecting your finances. So I called the friends who I think could afford it and was like, look, if she's going to be in Europe, black Brits
We're
are the
doing
best people in Europe for us to listen to Beyonce.
She sold it too. She sold it. She
Because
talked about
they
the atmosphere. She talked about the energy. She talked about, I was in. The
They
minute you
already
told me, I
love the
was in.
music.
I was there.
A lot of y'all don't even like that kind of music, but you like it now because of Beyonce. Black Brits
Right.
been love dance music like this.
You're absolutely
Except
right.
for DC. Shout out to the DMV area. Y'all been love follow me. Y'all
And
love
you know
that
what?
kind
This
of music.
was within weeks of the Renaissance drop. You need to get your credit. Like
Yeah.
this Renaissance was still
It was hot off the presses when I found out
Still
about the tour.
hot.
And so the beautiful thing about having such a huge head start on knowing when the tour was going to do its thing was that I said it and then I threw it away.
She did.
Until Beyonce made the actual announcement in February, and I quickly realized that there was pre-registrations, registrations, giving up your first blood,
And then I came to you and I was like, is you or is you not?
And my answer
My
was
Beyonce
no.
bae.
Yeah, my answer was no because it just seemed like way too much stress. I had
did.
been to so many Beyonce concerts previously that didn't require so much.
Yes.
So this is how God works, guys. And the reason why we're telling this story is there's a thing called the law of detachment. And the law of detachment means when you believe that what you're asking for belongs to you, you ask for it and you throw it away.
And y'all, she claimed, okay, on credit, she claimed London like 8 months ago.
Yeah. And then
Specifically.
very specifically, and then forgot that I had claimed it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe Paris would be cute because London was on Memorial Day, and I was like, oh, that might be.
I was on like 4 or 5 different wait lists, Blue. I'm not even gonna hold
So
you.
I was on zero wait list, didn't even
I'm
log
not
onto a
gonna hold you.
website, had given up, and then I wake up on a random day and say to myself, damn, I guess I'm not going to see Beyonce. There goes that dream. I wonder what's going on the website. I go on the website while I'm watching TV, click on a couple of buttons, and then something pops up and says, you're next in queue. And I said, now what happened now? And I freaked out because I had zero intention of giving tickets because I had given up. And next thing I know, there's a countdown saying you are about to get tickets in 90 seconds. So I immediately texted those same 3 people. Like, I'm very consistent.
I was in 2 meetings.
Oh, my bad, friend. Because I really was like, girls, it's an emergency.
She literally, I was like, Blue, I am literally on a Zoom Like right now, I'm presenting on a Zoom,
But here's the thing, because
trying
I
to
don't want to
make the
belabor the
coins that I'm
point.
gonna need in order to purchase the tickets.
So I hit up Jeffrey, you, and David. You were the
Okay.
only one who responded.
Wow.
And the thing is, this time I didn't call you. I texted you and said, it's about Beyonce. I was so clear. I was like, this is about Beyonce. And to your credit, that's
This
all
is
it took.
not a drill.
That's all it took was. And the next thing I know, long story longer, nobody responded but Kenya. But within, what, 20 minutes,
Within 20
we did
minutes.
not just get Beyonce ticket, guys, because that would have been normal. What ended up happening is, through the grace of God and whatever credit scores and
such an
savings we
almighty
had,
God. Such an on-time God.
the only seats that were available were VIP on stage.
The only ones we could get, you guys.
So, long
had to.
story, again longer. Kenya and I have now spent what many of you spend
Listen,
on your mortgage.
what God blesses us with. I don't need nobody counting my coins. Just know.
Don't need to clean up for these people. What most of America spends on mortgages and utilities. We're favored. We're highly favored, friend. No, we have to keep it real, because I don't want to come on here and act like what we did is very attainable for everybody. Most of the population could not afford to drop that much money,
girl,
with 90 seconds notice.
You are missing a big chunk of the portion of the story about how we even were able to. I was not about to even be able to do that.
Yeah, let's skip that part. But
so because circumstances,
she sold the kidney, guys. But anyway,
pretty much.
So here's the thing that is wild to me is, I had given up, and now I went from giving up and thinking I was going to be there at all to us being in VIP on stage with her.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, do we have to learn any dances?
Girl, you better come correct.
Like, I don't. What does it mean?
You better call your contact and ask for that stage layout. Ask for the seating chart.
Who says I don't already have it? So
I'm gonna need it. Put me up on game.
I'm just saying that I'm a little bit nervous because
I'm nervous about the fashions.
Yeah, because London is the first New York.
I'm nervous about the fashion.
For those of you who don't know, London is the first. It's the first New York, guys. So before there was New York, there was London. So it's very East Coast high fashion, and because it's Beyonce and it's Renaissance and Club Renaissance, we don't have to be high fashion, but more so we have to be fun and clubby. And so I don't know if it's a cat suit in my future or high boots or what's happening.
London, you about to get all these curves.
Okay? You about to get all these
coming.
It's gonna be a look. And so how do you feel now that it's been a couple of days since we made that?
Still numb.
I went to a party and told my friend at the party, and she thinks we're nuts.
Sure. We're crazy. I justified it already by telling you that, my birthday is just a couple days after her show in London.
So for you, it gets to be like a birthday trip, and like
this is my Renaissance. This is my Renaissance year.
Aww.
I felt so Blue. You know my story. You know my testimony. This is my Renaissance year, and so I leaned into it. I'm done questioning when I ask the universe for things. When I ask God for things, I'm done questioning how they show up to me. I've missed out on way too many blessings in my life because I criticized the way in which what I asked for came to me, and I'm done doing that.
You know what's so crazy too? Because in the Galentine's episode, we talked about how, when you are a woman who is alpha presenting, and you guys, if you don't know the terminology, the reason why I say alpha presenting is I don't actually think I'm an alpha, but I do recognize the millions of ways that I present like one, despite being much more beta in my personal relationships. And when you're alpha presenting, you're unsympathetic. And I think that's part of the thing that I find very relatable with Beyonce is, no matter how hard she works, they're going to tell her, you're too good, you're too famous, you're overrated, X, Y, and Z. We won't even give you the Grammy that you clearly should have won. Like, she's very unsympathetic because she's so successful. And so I guess I'm wondering, like, how do you deal with when you are having a bad day or a choppy season and you want sympathy, but you recognize that the way you present makes it hard for people to naturally want to give it to you?
Well, I don't ask for it anymore. I don't ask for it anymore.
You don't have to ask for it, but how do you feel about it?
How do I feel? It's heavy as the head. Heavy as the head. It's tough. I think the reason why you asked a really important question on the Galentine's, where you said, given one sentence, a way that somebody can love you, right? Love you, right? And I leaned into patience, just because the world is so not patient with alpha presenting people.
Yeah.
And so, And so, how do I feel about it? I feel it's an uncomfortable place to want to claim what you know is yours, but it's never been given to you. So that's tough.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because there's this guilt thing, right? It's like I
Mm-hmm.
know it's mine. I've seen it. I've been waiting for a moment in which I could claim it. I haven't been able to. When it finally comes to me, now if I claim it immediately, I feel guilty because should I have waited? Was it for me to, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
that whole dance. But I feel fit. How do I feel? I still feel numb. The end of my credit card statement has not hit yet. When my credit card statement comes, friend,
Mm-hmm.
just,
Well,
send me a heart emoji on that day.
here's the thing. I feel like I'm not ashamed of buying something that made me happy.
Yeah.
But to the question around like what is it like when you recognize that you're an unsympathetic character, I've learned to like work with it rather than begrudge it.
Yeah.
So like I ask for compassion. If you don't have it to give, I move on.
Yeah. No,
Because
you can't wait for it.
yeah, like people
I
I've
will not wait for compassion.
yeah, no, I ask for compassion, and if you don't have it to give it to me,
I will not
I
wait.
move on. And so it's very interesting that I think the reason why in this season of my life I'm not a part of the Bay Hive, even though people think I am.
Mm-hmm.
I paid that money because seeing someone at the top of their game, I think is inspiring for me right
A
now.
1000%. And also doing something that I thought that I could never do, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not for whatever people think about me and where I come from and what I do for a living and how much I earn and where I live, like I'm not the like Louis Gucci Chanel chick.
me either.
That's
Yeah.
not me. Could I have done it a bazillion times over? Sure. Like, but I didn't. Like I
Hmm.
made different investments, and this is an investment that I made in myself and an experience that I know I will remember forever. And I'm so grateful that we get to experience it together.
So that's my way of telling for all of you who are getting clowned by your friends for going to because people love to clown folks
Don't let
who
them talk about you.
if you found a way to make it there and you have a great time, fuck anybody who thinks you're
All you need
silly.
is one bougie ass friend, and if you are your own bougie ass friend, then you take yourself
All you need is
to
yeah,
London
you
and
need
see
some
Beyonce.
points and a cat suit.
Beyonce.
I
Um,
actually do think that people are going to be. I think watching people get dressed in London is going to be a fun kiki. Do you love to travel a lot in this season of your life, or do you find yourself wanting to be more landlocked and focused on
Oh, I
work?
love to travel. The world is my work. I work in culture. You work in culture,
Yeah.
right? I love to travel. I've always loved to travel, but I love to travel even more now because what I see, how I feel, what I take in, what I observe, is informed by so many other different things.
Are you a solo traveler, or do you like to travel in like
I can do
groups?
both. I'm not a group
Yeah.
traveler. Let me be clear. I
Why?
am not a group
Because
traveler
I was gonna
because a
say
lot
I
of
can't
people.
see you in a huge group of
I
traveling
am
girls.
not a I am not a group
Pourquoi?
traveler.
Why? Why?
Because not everybody has the same standards. And what makes a good
Ooh,
experience, it's true.
I thought Kenny was going to talk about personality. She just called y'all broke.
No, it's
Um,
no, it's not just that. But it's not just that standards. It's not just that standards, expectations, what makes a full trip,
yeah,
And I am a care. I love my friends out loud. I'm
yeah.
a caring person, and I desire to. I don't want to feel conflicted on a trip that is mine about the time that I do or don't spend with people because of what it does
I just think I'm
for
getting
me.
old, and I want to be luxurious and be fed grapes by shirtless men and not
But
have to
sometimes I
worry.
want to turn up,
No, but
you
I
know?
want the option to not have to always turn up because I think there's some folks who feel like if I leave my house, I need to the entire
Oh, yeah,
time.
no.
Let me tell you, I need a spa day and a sleep day.
Mhm.
And I recognize that not everybody needs a spa day and a sleep day. And
Mhm.
that's fine.
Mhm.
If you are willing to let me have that without judging me or being upset about it, then we can travel together.
Yeah.
But if I have to constantly turn the fuck up for us to travel together,
Yeah.
I'm tired. I've had so many friends who have needed to rest and recover from their vacation because they were turning up the entire time. I don't have buffer days.
We've never traveled internationally together, but I know we're going to do well together.
Well, here's the thing. I'm so excited about the trip. I know I'm gonna have a great time in London because London is London.
I'm excited to
And
travel
I also
internationally with you.
really why?
I
That's
am
interesting.
because first of all, you planted
Cute.
this seed.
I
First of
did.
all,
Yeah.
you planted this seed.
I'm taking full responsibility for the recklessness of this purchase. You know what's so crazy? One of the things we
She
have
really did it, you guys. She gave me a countdown and a text thread. Imagine being in a Zoom with a very important business Zoom and your friend telling you that this is not a drill. This is the one opportunity. You have 90 seconds to decide
well, you're the only
right
one
now.
who responded. So I said, if you're
Right now.
responding, I'm gonna tell you what I'm looking at. I'm
And then
looking at a
proceeded to
countdown
hurry
screen.
you even more.
I had a 90-second
Multiple
countdown
attempts.
screen. So one of the things we have in common, aside from the fact that we have spent ridiculous amounts of money on Beyonce tickets, is that we both are people who had a very uh, uh, substantial time in DC
Yes.
and are now in LA.
Yes.
And I have strong thoughts about the ways that DC and LA overlap and
Okay.
intersect.
Okay.
So, do you want to flex real quick for the audience and tell them what your time in DC consisted of and what you did, friend?
Yeah, so I did some bi-coastal living between Los Angeles and Chocolate City during the years of 2012 to 2016. I worked in politics. I started off as
Uh
the girl who got
huh.
the coffee and worked my way up to a fundraiser, crisis manager, policy advocate, you know.
And who mentored you during that time, friend?
Oh, many people, but
Mm-hmm.
many people, Congress folks. I'm a Bass baby, Karen Bass.
We love Karen Bass.
I'm a product of Karen Bass.
We love Mayor
Yes, we
Karen
do.
Bass.
And so, the most honorable elected official that I know, looking straight in the camera and saying that.
How does that feel to see a black woman be the mayor?
Well, she's been so many things to me for so
Is she the first in
long.
LA? Is she the first black female?
She's the first black female mayor,
I thought so. Yeah.
and black woman to be mayor in Los Angeles. She was the first um, uh, African American Speaker of the House, Speaker of the Assembly, excuse me, in the California State Assembly. When she was in
Didn't
back in
they
the
want
day.
her to replace Kamala for a second? I thought there was some
I
conversation
think
around that.
there has always been a desire to not create a political vacuum
Yeah.
of the particularly in black leadership circles that we have in Southern California is super blessed to be this really unique microcosm of what black incorporation and leadership can look like on a political level. And I think you know, the Honorable Miss Bass has always been at the top of everybody's minds when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to how do we make sure we put in a leader that can do what needs to be done, that can lead, that can advance, that can, So I
You know
think,
where I met her for the first time?
yeah,
Hollywood Unlocked.
really.
We did an episode of Hollywood Unlocked because at the time, her and Jason were working to get somebody who was exonerated for really horrible reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't deserve to be in jail,
Mm-hmm.
and she came on the show because they were talking about the campaign to get him out. A couple of months later,
Mm-hmm.
I go to Jason's house for Thanksgiving, and the young man that he and Karen got out was there for Thanksgiving dinner.
She's
I
so
burst
amazing.
into tears
She's so
because it's one
amazing
thing to be talking to somebody who was trying to get out of jail. It's another thing to watch them
to
actually
watch them.
be home for the holidays. And then, honestly, you know how I knew she was going to win? She spent 1/10 of the money as her opponent. I'm not going to speak that person's name, but she was everywhere last year. I could not go to a
Because she's the
function.
people's champ.
I was like,
You
Karen,
can't dispute the impact
everywhere I
that
went,
she has
Karen Bass
had
was
on
there.
tons of people's lives. And I think I'm so proud. There's so many ways in which I am critical of constituencies, particularly when it comes to, voting and doing what it is that we need to do at the polls. But I will
Absolutely.
say that I am incredibly grateful. I don't want to say proud, but I'm incredibly grateful for the city of Los Angeles for holding the line and electing one of the best mayors I know we will ever see.
And
Um,
March is all about women.
it
And
is.
so strong women who support women is a big
This
thing.
is this is not a paid endorsement. I just stand
No, we
for
actually sincerely love
we
her.
sincerely love
We
you.
sincerely love Karen Bass.
We
And
love you.
and the thing is that she puts her money where her
Mayor
mouth
Bass,
is.
absolutely.
Now, here's my thing.
But she's made investments. I mean, I am a product of that, and
Yeah,
so many of the people that we share in common as friends are products of her leadership pipeline. I learned to be a political strategist and consultant through an internship with her because I was working in her district office when she was Speaker of the California Assembly, and I, looked around and said, "What does this person do, and what does that person do?" I didn't even know that what I ended up doing for a living, my first chapter of my career, was a possibility. I didn't learn that from school. I didn't learn that from. No, I learned that because I had access, and she was so open about what it is that we wanted to do. I mean, we sat in her living room. Um, and at her charge of kind of heightening us to what was happening in politics in that during that time in Los Angeles and the opportunities that existed being young, talented, Black connected politicals. And she charged us to you know take the tools that she had imparted on us and do something masterful with it. And we created the Black Los Angeles Young Democrats
What
in
does
her
the
living room.
I want to talk about your time. I'm going to pivot to talk about your time in DC.
Sure.
What does DC have in common with Hollywood to you? Because I have thoughts around that.
Brunch culture.
Interesting. I've heard.
It was a joke.
No, but I'm
I don't
saying
know how to.
I'm saying that that's actually funny because it's actually not inaccurate. I
Yeah.
think somebody one time mentioned to me that they think, and this is not my controversial opinion. I'm not scared to have my own, but this is something I heard from somebody else. So give them the smoke. Somebody said that DC is the ugly version of Hollywood, where in LA it's politics on both sides, but in LA they're more concerned about the optics, but that they're both theater. It's both
Yeah.
about it's both about knowing how to create a narrative, and that it's just a less pretty version of Hollywood, and that once you recognize that politics and the industry don't look so different.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, interesting. Do
They
you agree
don't.
with that?
I do agree. I do agree with that. And I'll take it a step further to say that I actually prefer DC more because there's
Wow, really?
just off the elements that you're talking about, because
Yeah.
it's really challenging, to build a structure, right? And to be like, that structure is what I know it is, and I'm calling
Yeah.
it by that name, it responds to that name, that's a structure, is one thing. But to build a structure and then put a facade up, right? And be like, you think that's that structure, but it looks like this on the outside, and you'll only know that it's the actual thing when you go inside. That's Hollywood. Right? So I feel like, having access is one thing, but having a direct, I just feel like, there are elements of DC that are it's still very much pretentious, still very much still very, quid pro quo, still very, connected. But it's the facade aspect is challenging.
I'm the opposite. I prefer Hollywood to DC. And the way that I encapsulate that is I feel like DC is very much well said, while LA is very much well done. Where on the East Coast, and I'm from the East Coast, guys.
I see too many people out here rewarded for things that aren't well done, though,
No,
and that's challenging.
I understand that, but I'm saying I feel
and
like
that doesn't stand in DC.
But pause for a second. I'm just saying that for me, in LA, even if you're not the brightest person, people in LA will outwork you. Like there's a strong work ethic in California that people are so busy calling it fake that people don't get credit for. Whereas in DC, I'm surrounded by a lot of really smart pontificators who don't always have a good work ethic. So I've been surrounded by folks who spoke eloquently, who were really, really smart, who would intellectually run circles around you, but wouldn't pull up their sleeves to work.
The hustle, yeah.
Whereas
hustle
in
is not
LA,
matched.
even if someone's not that bright, they can get really, really far because they will outwork you, even with a slightly lower IQ and doesn't know how to say the words correctly. And so I think for me, I'm in this place in my life where well done to me is a better compliment than well said.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and the thing is, I love DC, by the way. I'm gonna always be an East Coast
agree with
girl,
that.
but I really feel like LA sometimes gets a bad rap because there's a opportunity here to make it here that I don't think the East Coast always gives you. If you're not smart, you're not gonna make it but so far on the East Coast unless you're slinging and hustling, right? Out here, it's a little bit, to use the word we used last time, democratic. Like everybody could get in a
There's
little bit.
social politics in each
It's
environment.
social, yeah. The social
There's
politics are different, yeah.
in each environment, and I think, being born and raised in Southern California, perhaps
the irony that we're caping for each other's coast.
I think it's because I understand my home environment more.
Yeah.
And you understand.
And I understand
your
that we be full of shit a little bit.
environment more. So, but I think the social politics, there are a lot of similarities between the two environments. And again, I think that's why I was able to parlay my career from working in
I can just
politics
see you in DC. Like you're giving
entertainment.
Scandal, friend. Like, by the way, when I watch Scandal, how accurate on a scale of 1 to 100% do you think Scandal is to real life?
I mean, Miss Judy Smith would agree that it's pretty.
That was called a subtle flex, guys. If y'all do not know who Judy Smith is who Scandal is based on. And Kenya, you want to let people know how you know about Judy Smith, since we up here dropping names.
We know about her. She, all hail to the queen. I think it's there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of similarities between the two environments.
I don't think that when you watch shows like Scandal, you see the social politics and the bartering and all the things that are done to manipulate something, and then the narrative is all shiny and polished or whatever. I think people know that's true.
Yeah.
But I don't think knowing something and feeling it are the same. And so I knew that LA, I knew that DC were like this, but it wasn't until I was in political spaces I was like, oh, this feels different, even though I knew it existed.
Yeah.
And in LA, one of the things that really shocked me was resumes look different out here. Back home, a resume is a piece of paper. In LA, in this industry, a resume is a phone call. Because if somebody trusts you,
it's your relationship currency.
it's all relationship currency. If somebody trusts you, I can't tell you, I've only been here 3 years.
But that's there in DC too.
It is, but here's the thing that's interesting is that DC people have to make you look good on paper, and in LA you don't even need paper.
Not always.
Oh, well, maybe I'm
Not
Forrest Gump.
always.
Maybe I'm
Not
Forrest
always.
Gump.
We got people coming into Congress, folks whose resumes don't even make sense on paper
At least the paper exists.
at all.
At least so
But it's not real.
it's not real, but it exists. Like there's how do I say this? A desire to release pretend. Perfect example. I had a friend, I cannot name her because I don't want to get in trouble. Someone was going to give her a blessing. A phone call was made, and guys, let me actually pull it back and explain to you guys what we're talking about. In Los Angeles, the way resumes work here is if somebody knows that they want to work with you and they know that you have a mutual in common, mutual friend, colleague, whatever, they call that friend or colleague and ask about you off the record, like, what is it really like to work with this person? If you get a glowing review, then it helps push you along. If someone's like, "Ooh, watch out for her. She looks good on paper, but she's actually really difficult to work with," suddenly you'd be surprised. That's how blackballing happens, by the way, guys. Suddenly, opportunity is gone because somebody who had their ear said, "Yes, skip that one." I used to think it was unfair until I got on set and realized it doesn't matter how qualified you are. Nobody wants to be on set for 20 hours with an asshole.
Facts.
And there's an intimacy to the space that people hold in the industry that makes it like, damn, even if you're qualified, I do not want to spend this much time with you. It's not a 9 to 5 kind of structure. So I understand it a little bit, but there have been a couple of times, and let me know if this happened to you, where I've got phone calls from folks saying, so and so tried to block your blessing, but we didn't listen to her.
1,000%.
How do you feel when you find out that a bullet grazed you but didn't hit?
Like I'm serving the God that I pray to every night.
Amen. You're one of the few people that I can ask this question, by the way. Because a lot of folks will never know what it's like to find out
I've
through
been
the
there.
grapevine that somebody was talking a little womp, womp, womp.
Oh yeah.
And that your favor and your covering.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And you know what though? It is more times than not left up to chance that they went. It's because the track record outpaces the gossip.
The consistency of
Right?
your character, yeah.
Yeah. And so, we make it easy for ourselves when we continue to show up being who we are.
Yeah.
But the track record outpaces the gossip.
It's always interesting though. Like the first time it happened to me, I had barely gotten here. I had only been here for a couple of months, and I was like, "Who me? I'm nobody. I just got here. I don't even know y'all like that." But I realized that, to your point, when you're consistent, people think it's a threat because there are so many folks out here who have opportunity but no content. Or opportunity but no like sweat equity, or opportunity but like no wherewithal or experience. So when you have an opportunity but you're actually equipped to do something with it,
Right.
people will find it threatening. And I think allyship is really, really important. How have you been able to make allies? Because as somebody who is so strategic politically, and because we've said a million times now, Hollywood is very political.
Yes.
It's politics as usual.
Yes.
How have you made allies in this industry? Because I've made allies by mistake. I don't even know I'm making an ally. I'm a happy out kikiing with somebody and then walk into a meeting and realize they have my back, and I wasn't even thinking about that. So I can't take credit for most of my allies, to be honest. I wish I could. But I feel like you probably could. How do you intentionally create allies?
Cool. So I'm gonna answer this a long way around the block because I think it's important to share
Let me get
this
my
message
drink.
with people. Yeah.
Get it, friend.
So we've talked a lot about currency in this episode, right? The monetary value of things, right? I've been very interested in currency and capital 4 different ways my entire career, starting off in politics: social, political, cultural, financial. Being a child that was born into privilege in South Orange County, California, the least thing that I was concerned about was the financial, right? I was really interested in social currency, in political currency, and cultural currency, particularly because I grew up in a very homogenous environment. Nobody looked like us, and still we had position, right? I knew, drugstore clerks, and they would take me up to the bankers and the grocery store people and the crossing guards, and there was a social currency that the neighborhood knew. She may not look like everybody, but we know who and who she is, and there's value there.
Mm-hmm.
When my parents got a phone call, because I had a run-in with getting stopped by police unfairly in Irvine by IPD, because I was sitting on a bike and got given a ticket for not riding a bike without a helmet on, and I'm just sitting on a bike and get harassed by the police. My
That's
dad,
even racism. Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
My parents get a phone call. My dad picks up one line to the chief of police in the city of Irvine, right, and is like, "Just help me understand." Right? It was never like a accusation. Just help me understand this experience, right? So I've been fascinated with currency for a long time. I think that has informed the relationships that I have intentionally made, because 1,000% off top, when I meet somebody, I want to know what you value, because that makes me know how open or closed, how safe or not safe, how fluent or confluent
Mm-hmm.
we can be with each other if I know what you value. Now, the comfortable space is, okay, there's a direct through line between what you express to me that you value and what I value, and therefore we ain't even got to go to the teller. I can break you off change right here. We can do this currency exchange right here. Where it gets a little bit more challenging is when you meet people who value things that either I am not willing to ante up and give, or
Mm-hmm.
I just don't value the same things, right? And so allyship becomes easier because I'm immediately going for, what do you value, and how
Is that
can we meet in the
intentional when
middle?
you meet people, or does it organically come about for an opportunity to arise to assess that? Like,
I
are you
think because
intentionally bringing that up?
I'm a nation builder, so I need to know what I need to. 1,000% I need to know. I'm automatically always looking at, how can I support, uplift, affirm, connect, empower, build. Like, that's just how I'm wired.
How did you get the ability to do that without feeling awkward? Because we had a couple people here who were deep in the industry. They're very powerful. They wield all this stuff, and they said, "Hey, sometimes it's exhausting that people always see me as an opportunity, not as a person."
Yeah.
So how do you balance the line between doing that but not being egregious and making somebody feel like they're only an opportunity, not a person?
Well, I will say thank you, friend, for telling me that you have never felt like an opportunity when I have engaged with you, or I've
Yeah.
engaged with people around you. I will take that as a compliment. I appreciate that. I feel awkward many times. I don't feel, and that's because the rubric that I operate by is not universally accepted in the society that we find ourselves in all the time.
Yeah.
So I feel like a fish out of water often. I feel slighted often. I feel,
What makes you feel slighted? Because being slighted is such a human, and the show's called
mm-hmm,
Humanized,
mm-hmm,
such a human and vulnerable feeling.
yeah.
And for someone who's listening to you, who's trying to figure out how to get from where they are to where you are, what makes you feel slighted, and how do you push through that?
I mean, it's just a mismatch. It's an inequity, right?
Or
It's
an expectation of
unevenness.
inclusion of some sort?
Exactly. That is it. It's disappointment.
Mm.
Um, and the truth is that I have to mitigate my own expectations and disappointments on a daily basis. It doesn't stop. It takes a lot of encouragement, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think you continue to surround yourself with an ecosystem of people, even if that ecosystem is one, two,
It only
with
takes
people
two
who
or three to
validate,
gather. Mm-hmm.
right? Who validate how you look at the world and what you expect out of the world for yourself and for them. And I think, you keep coming back to the watering hole. And if you find that that watering hole has dried up, you be courageous enough to go and search for another one, and know that you're gonna get there before, you know,
You
you
just
don't have any more
you just
breath.
made me realize that I really do be winging it. Everything you said sounds so smart and intentional. When I tell you I am Forrest Gump, I be leaving the house. I'm like, oh, she cool. And then we hang out. I'm like, oh, I didn't know she does
Well,
that. Okay.
it is organic. It is organic
No,
because
what you're doing is, but there's also, I want to give you credit. There's an intentionality to it that I think is beautiful that I don't think I've ever really cultivated. I think for me it's more instinct than conversation, and I luckily it served me, but I do think I would have gotten much further in life had I been more intentional about making allies, not by happenstance.
And there's a part of me that laments being hardwired to be a strategist. I mean, I was again born and raised in an environment where I had to know, it was survival to know who was for me and who was not.
How do you turn that off so you can have a reprieve and breathe? Like, what's your? Is there a moment that you give yourself? Because I think everything can be good or bad if it's out of balance.
Yeah.
And so I think even though the Forrest Gump thing has been a fun ride for me, I'm
Yeah.
like, that's out of balance. If I do it too much, I need
Mhm.
to be a little bit more strategic, right?
Yeah.
So you being strategy girl, how do you have the how do you turn that off and have a Forrest Gump moment like me, just leave the house and see what happens?
I am still in this chapter of my life trying to find the balance of when it's on and when it's off.
Ah, got
That
it.
when it's off has manifested itself in ways for me where,
We
you
gonna
know,
get you drunk?
in 27 in 2017 I took a multi-year hiatus from my entire
Multi-year.
multi-year
How many
before the
years?
pandemic, nearly 3.
Wait, what were you doing for 3 years, friend?
I turned inward. I had a cute little apartment by the beach. I,
Oh, that would help.
you know,
Yeah, that would help.
dedicated back to myself. And I can look in the camera right here and say the people who were in my everyday life, you know, no one was exempt. It was all about me. Family, some, uh, you know, came for the ride, some didn't. But my need was I have to put my mask on before saving others, and this was 3 years before we collectively as a world had to do that.
What was the intention of that 3 year hiatus from
Living.
society? What were you doing during that time? Were you just like taking care of yourself and going inward or
I
healing
had to
from
find it.
something?
I left. So I left politics. I left working in electoral politics. I didn't know what was next for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time in my life where I didn't feel like I needed to write my story as it was happening.
Right.
And that was such a relief, to your point, right? That was such an exhale. Every other time in my life, every other transition that I've anticipated or experienced, I have, I have, in a premeditated fashion,
Superimpose.
started to
Yeah.
write the narrative of what I was experiencing or what it meant in real time. And I didn't then. You know, I invested in an athletic engineering company at the time. On paper, that made no sense, you know, for what I was doing. Little did I know I would end up, you know, committing to a plant based lifestyle, losing 100 pounds, changing my whole life. And that would inform what I have
I
for
mean,
me
that's
now.
amazing. The outcome of taking, like, most people are like,
Yeah,
Ken, you took 3 years off
I
and lost
really
100
did.
pounds
No
and
cap.
became a vegan and all this other stuff. But, like, how
Yep.
did you pay your bills, friend?
Again, I did it strategically at a particular
So you
time
had a
and
savings.
I,
Ooh.
lightly. Like, I mean, really, I'm not going to sit
No,
up here
and
and
I'm
act like
asking
it
these
was not
questions because I want the
coordinated.
audience, because there's somebody watching this
It
right
was not
now
coordinated.
who is burnt out and
It's
trying to
true.
figure out how
I
to work out the
didn't.
mechanics of this.
Listen, my first job, I was 15 and a half and I worked at Foot Locker. Okay. I didn't have to work. I wanted to work.
But back
Um,
to the reprieve, how did you fund your woosah moment?
I knew that I had a transferable skill set
Mm-hmm.
and I started consulting.
Got it.
I started consulting in a different way. I have always worked for myself for, 14 years now. I did political consulting beforehand, but it was at a very interesting time when 45 got elected, because I will not say his name.
Tomato, tomato.
That is when I was like, okay, politics and entertainment are intersecting in a way that is frightening, but also incredibly exciting
And
and
unprecedented.
unprecedented.
Yeah.
And so, if y'all, again, currency exchange, if
Mhm.
if society and pop culture is telling me that they value this over here, okay, well, let me just try my hand at this. Um, but I also had a lot of support. I didn't do it on my own. I
So
didn't.
you had a village to help you kind of have a buffer to breathe, which, by the way, is a beautiful luxury. Like
Yeah.
I would
Yes.
say,
Yes and no. I
but
was
but
not
but,
as
but, for, but for
transparent
a quick
though.
second, I do want us to double click on this because the audience is very nuanced and they're going to kill me if I don't.
Hmm.
There is a luxury in being able to do that. That there's no shame in admitting when you have it, because I wish we all had it.
Yeah, but let me be clear that there is a level of conditionality that I experienced when you always had it figured out and you don't have it figured
Hmm.
out. that support, I wasn't always willing to accept the support that was offered to me, because that support was conditional on me getting to a point where what I figured out made sense to the people who were offering me support. So yes, I had support offered to me, but a
Mhm.
lot of it I chose to not take because I was not ready to make it make sense yet. And I'm so grateful that I
Yeah.
did.
But
So it was tough,
and the
you
reason
know?
why I wanted to point that out is because somebody might hear this and they might not know you the way I know you and be like, well, it must be nice to be able to turn down support. I don't even have that. And I want to make sure that there's an entry point where they recognize that support might be offered, but it comes with conditions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people don't always want to admit that the conditions themselves. Perfect example, not all money is good money.
Mhm.
There are several times I've had the opportunity to make a lot more money than what I make right now.
Yeah.
I make good money, but like I could have made way more.
Yeah.
But the conditions were so icky, I couldn't
Mhm.
stomach it.
Yeah.
And so I want to demystify by addressing it rather
Yeah.
than pretending like, oh, yeah, I had support. It's no big deal. No, it is a big deal to have support, but it also comes with a price that I think folks who think that they would rush towards it, you actually probably wouldn't if you had to deal with those conditions.
And I wasn't living the life that I was when I stepped away,
Hmm.
and I'll tell you something, some crazy stuff happened to me during that 3-year period,
You didn't get lonely?
I went I did, and
Yeah.
I had partnership for some of that time, and didn't for others. But I was very clear that my main mission was every single day I'm going to wake up and do what it is that makes me feel good, because I neglected myself for so long. I'd practiced what I saw for so long.
You're conditioned.
Self-sacrifice being, directly connected to leadership as if it was honorable, right? I'd done that for so long that I had to unguilt myself every single day of those 3. I don't share that timeline as a badge of honor. I'm telling y'all that was one of the hardest time periods of my life, to not have an idea of what this was, didn't have a narrative that it was necessarily connected to, felt like I was throwing away everything I had invested in.
Hmm.
But I chose myself every single day. And that's where you really learn to love you. You know
So
what I
you hit a
mean?
factory reset. What gave you permission to come out of that?
You know, what people started saying to me and seeing in me was what I had seeded in myself. And so I started to see that alignment was real. It was no longer something that I wrote in affirmations every single day or
You
something
weren't
that I
faking it
prayed.
till you made it.
I
You had
not
become
I
it.
had actually become it. And when I
Yeah.
started to see that, I was like, okay, I'm ready.
It's so funny because the term fake it till you make it, I always say I don't believe in fake it till you make it. I believe in claim it till you become it.
I love that.
And I had posted something earlier this week about how one of my fondest memories of DC, nobody thinks it's a fond memory. I was at a movie theater and a young lady wanted the seats that I was saving for my friends. All their coats were in the seats, so it wasn't like they were empty. And when I wouldn't let her move their seats to their coats to take the chairs, she got angry and called me a stupid fat bitch.
Mm,
And it was on opening night on a Friday night in DC
mm.
at the theater in Chinatown. So every nigga around
Right.
was around.
Right.
And I am in a room full of 200 plus black and brown people on opening night. And when she said that, I didn't feel bad.
Yeah.
I didn't feel ashamed. I didn't even feel ugly. I looked cute that day. I felt sympathy for her because I looked at her crumpled Howard sweatshirt and her
Hmm.
messy hair, and I was like, "You're having a bad day,
Yeah.
and you're trying to make me feel as bad as you feel."
Right.
And it's so funny because 10, 15 years earlier, that would have made me come
It would have
undone.
leveled you. Right.
And I was like, "Oh shit, I'm not faking this anymore. I really do fuck with me."
Right.
It's probably one of my favorite memories from DC. People think it's weird, but it's like we all have these moments when we realize we're not faking it anymore.
No, I feel you. And for those of us who are builders, like, I had built up this entire ecosystem where, to be honest with you, it was a lot more comfortable for me to keep that going.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
my clothes I had a full wardrobe, sponsored clothing,
You better flex,
on TV all
bitch.
the
She
time.
said
Like all this,
sponsor, honey.
and changing my life and deciding to lose 100 pounds and, change careers completely. I mean, I was making my life a lot more complicated, and you will
And authentic.
And but authentic. Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, 1,000%.
So like, so you, it looks like you've confronted failure head on.
Many
And
times.
I've always joked that my first book is going to be dedicated to failure and my mother, my two biggest teachers. What
Mm.
has failure taught you?
Mm. Well, I've had to change my relationship with failure. Failure is final, like not getting it right the first, second, third, fourth, fifth time. I no longer characterize as failure. I have failed at things in my
Hmm.
life where I don't have another opportunity
Hmm.
anymore. That is failure. But it's changed the way that I even speak about my attempts, to do insert blank here.
How's it changed you?
Um, because the patience that I seek, I give to myself first.
Do y'all hear that? She said that she requires patience and she actually gives it. I love that you said that because a lot of times we ask for things that we don't ask ourselves if we have the bandwidth to give in return.
I
So that's dope.
Before 2017, I expected my external environment to believe in me more than I did first, and I waited on that validation first before I moved. After I made that decision, everything changed, and I became really comfortable with being the pacemaker that I had said that I wanted to be for a long time. And
Hmm.
that's why, when we talk about the Rihannas and the Beyoncés of the world, right? Like, she don't care about not winning album of the year, but it's gonna be 10 years before y'all realize the error in your ways, Academy, right? Like,
I think she
she
care a
don't
little bit.
care about,
I
she don't
think she care a little bit,
I,
but yeah, I
but
know what you
but
mean.
but I'm talking about, let me not say, I'm just talking about care in a consequential
Yeah,
way. Is it going to change your artistry? No.
yeah.
Is it going to change the way that you wake up every day? No. You know what I mean? Will it make you on time to the next award show? No.
No, she won't appear. She probably won't show up to the next award. And that's another thing too is that like when you are someone who is successful or really smart or really good at something, people tend to assume that you don't care and use it as an excuse not to give you what you deserve. And so, whether she cares or not, I do think we need to stop penalizing excellent people for being excellent.
But I also have had to change my relationship with what I think I deserve
Really, how so?
too. I think it's what we tell ourselves in terms of validation and acknowledgement for what we say we want to do and who we say we want to be in this world matters. And convincing ourselves that life is full of opportunities to acknowledge what we do, I think is a dangerous, slippery slope. And I'm okay with not being acknowledged in
I'm
real
okay. I'm
time
okay with not being acknowledged. I'm not
for,
okay with people playing in my face, and I do think that to literally base an entire show around me, have my
mm-hmm,
husband performing as the last act,
mm-hmm,
put me in the front seat, hand deliver me my
mm-hmm,
Grammy, and still not give me the award that you gave me the impression I was getting,
mm-hmm.
in spite of the fact that we all know that I could have gotten it. I think playing in my face, I'm okay to be upset about that. I cannot need that acknowledgement, but still say
But
we didn't have to do all
I
this.
still hold the value. I still hold the
Absolutely.
cultural value. I'm still clear
But you ain't gotta
about
play in
what
my
brought
face.
right. And again, I'm not saying that anybody deserves to be disrespected, right?
Yeah.
But that word deserve is tough. That's been a tough wrestle for me.
Really? Why so?
Deserve, because it implies worthiness is a crazy, crazy, crazy thing,
Really? Why?
because it the continuum that the spectrum that you apply, the start point and the end point,
Hmm.
and in the middle of all of that is your worthy portfolio.
I think a lot of times
It's challenging.
I think a lot of times people will conflate worthiness with entitlement because entitlement has an air of expectation and assumption. But if there are certain guardrails and rules that everybody's held to, and I'm being held to something different, in that moment, I'm not being entitled or attaching my worthiness. I'm asking to be treated with the same level playing field that everybody else is
And
being
that's
treated.
equity.
Yeah, and I'm acknowledging that I'm being treated inequitably. And I
Yes,
think the more
but that's not worthiness.
but I think exactly. I think the more excellent you are, the more people think you're entitled for wanting to be actually treated with a level playing field.
Yeah.
And it gets tricky to use my New Yorker friends because there have been so many times, look at Simone Biles. She was
Mhm.
competing And if she was equitable, she would have won.
Mhm.
She was so excellent, they changed the rules to penalize
Oh
her
yeah.
for being excellent.
Because we
And that's
constantly
when
move the
deserve,
bar.
yeah, that's when deserve makes sense for me. And it's very simple for me. It's like, if that rule's not being applied to anybody but me, I
Mhm.
deserve the same basic compassion and the same consistency that everybody else is getting. And to
Mhm.
me, there's nothing tricky about that.
Mhm.
Like, don't make different rules for excellence. And I think Black women in particular, when we're excellent and we're asking for what we deserve based on an objective definition that everybody else is held to, and you make an exception, so for me not to deserve it, I'm allowed to be like, I deserve that shit. Y'all playing in my
Yeah,
face.
but deserve implies that it's the same rubric, and it's never been the same rubric.
It
And
hasn't.
that's why I feel like the conversation about deserving things to people who constantly push the
Move the
culture forward
goalpost.
and move the goal. We
Yeah.
move the goalpost. Y'all stay move
Yeah.
the goalpost, but every time I walk out of this door, I move the
So
goalpost.
it's a new rule.
Every time I present in front of you, I move the goalpost.
Now I have a question that's a little bit less smart because it's humanized.
Love it.
And you're very smart, and the people who are following you are probably gonna be like, "Oh my God, I can't so smart." How do you date in a world where you are high profile in the sense that what you do is hard to downplay, right? Like,
Yeah.
no one's gonna date you and think you're regular, degular, or stupid or any of that good stuff, right? And as a fellow non-regular, degular bitch, people be getting a little bit scared.
Yeah.
How do you deal with showing grace for knowing that objectively you are atypical while also not making excuses for people who are being fragile in your face?
I'm unmarried
Wait,
still.
bitch,
So
that is not true. She said, "Girl, I'm unmarried, huh?
I'm
You
unmarried.
tell me when you find out, girl."
It's been tough. I have accepted a lot less than I should have. And again, I'm not going to say that I deserved, but a lot less than I should have.
I'm gonna push you, friend, because for those who are watching who take my course, they're gonna get mad at me if I don't push this. We don't use should. Should is considered one of the most toxic
Thank
words in the
you.
English language because it means that you're lamenting or judging what could have been and can't be changed.
Yes.
So then you could have.
Then I could have.
That you could have.
I received that. Thank you for
because,
that.
because there's no shame in what you chose. You
Yeah.
chose and you learned from it, right?
Yeah.
So now that you know that you took less than you could have or didn't ask for what you could have, how are you going to move differently in an empowered space the next time you meet a gorgeous, tall, handsome, rich suitor who wants to treat you like the queen you are and that you deserve to be treated, no asterisks?
I gotta
Manifesting, bitch.
I gotta hope that I meet them in real time with where I am. I think I've never really been being a strategist. I've never really been until this season of my life. I'm talking, what I decided to come. I made my grand appearance back. Monarch Magazine did an editorial on me. Multiple pictures. I came back. The art of reinvention, like
It's like a debutante.
a week before the pandemic hit. So that was my
wow.
So I came back from my hiatus like
during the
literally like right before everybody was like, and how are we gonna live 3 years?
How did that feel?
It's interesting. I actually talked about it in the article. They amended it at the last minute because I was like, I know y'all are freaking out about how you're gonna make it through this, but I'm telling you, as somebody who came back from a multi-year hiatus, you're gonna be just fine, and don't try to write the story in real time. But I was answering your question.
Dating.
Yes. So I've just had to be much more. I don't know. This is a season of patience for me, and I've had to let go of the expectations that I had of what love was going to look like, of what marriage was going to look like,
Amen.
of what partnership was going to look like. I've done more unlearning in hopes of clearing space to be able to receive what it is that I know my heart really wants. The Tao talks about the most useful tool is a bowl because it's empty.
Yep.
And I am somebody who was conditioned to think that I needed to be full all the time.
That can be distracting as hell.
Which is distracting. So, I'm still in the process of clearing space.
To be determined is the answer, and that's an honest answer. Thank you for not rushing. Kenya is a Gemini because we do zodiacs on here, and Geminis are often stricken for how they are quick to answer things in a polished way, and people wonder if they're being sincere. And I think there's something more sincere than saying I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah,
there's something more sincere, and you've been saying patience a lot, and because but negates, and what I'm also hearing is surrender.
1,000%.
There's so much surrender in your narrative. And the reason why I was excited about having you on the show is there's a lot of folks who are really smart and really brilliant who watch the show and think they have it all figured out. And then life throws a brick at their head.
Man.
And what you're talking about is giving yourself permission to be still
Yeah.
and to process what that feels like and to reconfigure what life gets to look like on the other side.
It was the best decision I've ever made. I've never moved. I am somebody who was trained to mitigate crisis.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I was never afraid of crisis when it came to my doorstep because I was trained in this. There's a, we've got
Crisis
a
is
step by
home.
step, right? We know how to work through this. We can figure it out. I've got an answer and a response. Intentionally not figuring it out, not having response, sitting in discomfort, sitting in, the middle space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and ironically, it was like, how am I going to introduce myself to people? Like, that used to always weird me out. Like, I walked away from electoral politics. I was totally okay with being like, I'm not the girl who works in politics anymore. I know you knew me then, and I don't really know how I show up right now, but this is what I'm doing. Entrepreneur was this really figurative word that kind of kicked in, and I became the thing that I criticized most about Southern California, which is this,
Everybody's an entrepreneur.
fictitious term that we use to describe our aspirations,
So,
right?
for the sake of, I think that's the perfect way to end this. If now that you've come full circle, how do you introduce yourself? So let's do this real fast. Hi, my name is Kenya, and I am
I'm a cultural strategist.
I'm a cultural strategist.
Yeah, I'm a cultural strategist.
That actually feels very good. Like it feels like you.
Yeah, it is me. I mean, I've recognized that the thing that I valued the most that kept me in spaces of electoral politics that now keep me in boardrooms and studios and entertainment, is the thing that I valued the most. That currency exchange for me is the culture that I've raised in, studied, experienced, value, feel protective of,
Mm-hmm.
and that I know needs to continue to thrive. And so, I am somebody who shows up in that space, and culture is everywhere. Just like everything is inherently political,
Yep.
everything is also, our culture, what we do, what we sprinkle into this world, how we bless spaces that we
What
show
we
up with,
eat, how we love.
right?
Yeah.
Everything is cultural, and that's how I introduce myself sometimes. But I'll tell you, friend, now more than ever,
Mm-hmm.
I no longer feel like I need a qualifier. I now say, my name is Kenya, and that's enough. And
Amen.
that's enough.
That is the perfect way to wrap this up, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this episode.
Thank
Kenya,
you, Blue.
I loved this. I hope you enjoyed it.
This was super fun.
And the thing about Humanized is I make it a point to ask the questions that are not just like, oh, yes, I agree, friend, because I want the people in the comment section, the people who are watching, to be like, damn, I wish Blue had asked that question.
Yeah.
I want you to unpack it with them, even when it's messy, because
Yeah.
there's so much power in people seeing your process.
Yeah. I'm
There's
not
so
afraid
much
of that
power in the
anymore. I'm not
process.
afraid of that anymore. I mean, I think as somebody who is known for a long time as having it all figured out and having it all buttoned up, like, I'm so not afraid of my mess. And I want people to see that, there is beauty in the mess. There is beauty in the
There's
mess.
an old song from back in the day from Garden State called "There's Beauty in the Breakdown," and
I
I used to
Beauty in the breakdown.
That's gonna be the name of the title. There's beauty in the breakdown.
I love it. That's it. It built me back up. I built me back up from a space that others would call ugly. And
I call it
I'm
necessary.
so and it was absolutely necessary. And I'm thriving now without qualification. How I show up in spaces is not what I do. I have removed the labor aspect from it, as Rihanna has done, as Beyonce
We ain't
has
never
done,
getting
right?
another
You know
album
what I
from
mean?
Rihanna. Beyonce barely
You
gave us a
know?
tour. She might not ever give us visuals. Those what's understood doesn't have to be explained.
Right.
Kenya, the producer's giving the side eye again. This always goes by so fast.
I love you.
I
Thank
feel
you
like
for this.
we're definitely gonna do this again.
I can't wait.
Every guest that I've had so far is somebody that I want to come back. So the streak has not been broken. For those who didn't see you last episode, where can they find you?
Y'all can find me on socials across the board. Kenya T Parham. That's Kenya T as in Taylor, Parham. Yep.
Kenya, I'm so happy for you. I'm happy for you because I can feel the peace while you're talking about it.
Yeah.
And this conversation could have been triggering for someone else. So it's nice when someone's talking about the muck and the mess and the beauty and the breakdown. And
Yeah.
you can tell that they've actually surrendered to the process and are not fighting it.
Mm-mm.
For anybody who wants to keep up with Kenya, she gave you her socials. Please follow her. You can find me at @BlueCentric. And as always, I always say, we are all just human beings doing human shit. Please, please, please be gentle with yourselves. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Blue. This was so